Check Podcasts. Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. This is Chamber Chats, which is brought to you by the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union. I would like to begin, as always, by acknowledging that I live and work in the ancestral territories and lands of the Lekwungen-speaking Coast Salish nations, in particular the Songhees and the Esquimalt. This program is made possible through the recording facilities at Czech Television, and you are possibly watching this on Czech Television too. We've seen a lot of things pop up in the last little while about workforce, trying to train people to be the workers we need to keep our businesses strong and robust and grow our economy. And of course, much of that is reliant upon what happens in our post-secondary institutions. Very pleased today to welcome back to Chamber Chats Dr. Kevin Hall, who is the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Victoria. Dr. Hall, great to see you again.
Hey, great to see you, Bruce. Thanks for the invite to have a chat again.
You bet. Something you and I have spoken about that we want to talk about today, when employers are looking at creating workforce, we've talked about the co-op program where students can go through that. They can become oriented to the operations of a business. But supporting students to get through school, and many of us benefited from that earlier in life, is the idea of student awards, scholarships, bursaries that are run through post-secondary foundations. Tell me about where that's at right now and what the future of it looks like.
Yeah, that's a great question, Bruce. We are investing much more than we used to, let's say, in bursaries and scholarships. You know, times are really tough around Victoria, particularly with respect to the cost of housing, cost of living for our students. And so we're finding the split between our scholarships and bursaries is changing. So scholarships are typically awarded based on somebody's academic performance as opposed to a bursary, which will be more as somebody in need requiring a bursary. And we've almost doubled the amount of money we put into bursaries over the past 2 years as we've come through COVID. And the start of that was really going into COVID and the uncertainty people had around their jobs. A lot of our students, of course, work part-time in the community. And when the pandemic first hit, those jobs disappeared for a while. And I think there's been a reluctance also now of 2 years later of actually people going back into the workforce, whether it's fear of COVID, whatever the situation is. And so we're finding more and more students are coming to us with some need to help them get through the month. And again, driven by what we're all seeing, which is a large inflation rate and a really critical housing situation.
You know, another part of that of what post-secondary foundations do is they help raise money to create the infrastructure that makes education possible, because it was a case 15 years ago probably that pretty much all of post-secondary was covered by government money. The government said, here's your dough, go ahead, do your thing. After a while, though, that started to come back, and I don't know what the current number is. I want to guess that it's about 40% of your funding is from government.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit higher depending on the program, but
Yeah.
it's around that, and another 35% or so comes from our student fees, and there's other types of revenue we generate. But I would say, donations, philanthropy are becoming an important part of this bursary business. We probably, have less than 50% of our scholarships and bursaries on some type of outside funding, so it comes from within our resources, and we're always trying to go out and look for opportunities to create either scholarships or bursaries. And I think one of the important things is we're moving forward and we're trying to align the programs we deliver and the types of student attributes that we see industry and business wanting. We're going also to the industry and business and saying, is there an opportunity for you, for example, to invest in a scholarship to support a student to study in this particular field, which is going to be beneficial to you in the long run. If you like, it's kind of a pre-co-op investment
Yeah.
to say that let's find some really high quality students to put into a program, with your job opportunities in mind at the end of the road.
Yeah, I've been involved in some of that fundraising in the past, as you know, and it's always interesting to point out to people that, well, you can pay more taxes if you want to make this stuff happen, or you can get a tax receipt for what
Yes.
you would like to see happen at a post-secondary. So foundations make that happen at all post-secondaries. And so we're talking about sort of aligning curriculum with workforce need too, which you and I have spoken about in the past too. So how is it that the workings of UVic and others, Royal Roads, Camosa, and UBC, take a look at what's needed in the workforce, right? Because finding workers right now is a huge deal, as you mentioned earlier. Tell me about that process of finding out what curriculum should be established in order to create the workforce that's needed.
Yeah, so I think we've seen a real change in the way universities are operating in this space. I would say in the past, we offer the programs that students tend to want, and we don't think too much about the receptors of the student or the job market, apart from where the government might step in and say, we want some tech seats because we think engineering, technology, science is going to be important to the province. I think universities have really been thinking hard over the last few years exactly about that. What is the future of work? What is the workforce going to look like? And I was really pleased to see the province release its economic plan for the next 5 years, which really articulated, if you like, a sense of where the province wants to move with respect to technology, science, applications of things like artificial intelligence, some of the healthcare places. And, they were very careful to articulate the kinds of skills that they want to be seeing. And I think universities have to sit there and look at that and go, okay, this is where we need to focus some of our effort. And so that's what we've been doing in the past few years. We've developed a lot more tech seats from the government support in engineering and science. We've worked on increasing the education faculty component because the future teachers of the K to 12 are really important.
Right.
And we've really focused a little bit on healthcare. But we can never forget the importance of the other pieces of our campus that really create that whole student. So the humanities and the arts and science, the arts and it's really a critical piece of the future of education, not to be forgotten, but it's not always aligned with where we see the government wanting to move. I'd say the second piece is we listen more to the people that hire our students at co-op. Whereas we used to look for co-op places to put our students, we're now looking for, how can we help you in your business actually be more successful? What are those skills and attributes you're looking for? And we can take that information back into our faculties and help adjust some of the programs to make sure we're building the skill sets that are important to the employers in our region and across the country.
Yeah, and we always want to hear that from our chamber members too. If they can tell us what they need as far as workforce goes, then that is
Yeah,
passed on to post secondaries. But a specific example of that during COVID, as people were more and more reliant upon technology, a lot of people found that they were being hacked with cybersecurity, especially,
right.
with all due respect, older people who don't have the literacy with that kind of. And I'm not talking about you and me, but I just mean people that have had that issue. So, post secondary dealing with cybersecurity, that's a huge deal, huge deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, I would say, from multiple perspectives now that we're looking at it. So, we're a typical institution like most Canadian universities that take students that come from high school typically, and we give them an education. We're really now starting to look at, um, beyond that 28% of the BC population that goes to university. There's a lot of really smart people out there. So, what's our role in enabling programs, for example? So, taking people who are already in the workforce and giving those new skills around cybersecurity. What's our role in the delivery of micro credentials or upskilling and reskilling? And
Right.
cybersecurity is a great example. We're working with the Canadian Border Security on a set of micro credentials for employees of CBSA to do exactly what you're talking about, to give a little bit of basic knowledge around cybersecurity, a little knowledge around artificial intelligence. And so I see, universities have to also get beyond their traditional mode of operation to be looking at how can we deliver these things that are important to the public, to our alumni, to industry and business and to government. And so we're trying to look at all these different vehicles to push forward ideas around things like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine-based learning, some of those things that affect all of us in our daily lives.
Because we would always hear things about Russian hackers. So now Russia doing what is happening in the world. Just going to leave
Yep.
that out there for now. But so when we talk about intake into post secondaries, finding the students that are going to come in to learn, they of course are coming from secondary school level. I want to talk about that next. Our chamber chat today is with Dr. Kevin Hall. He is the president and vice chancellor of the University of Victoria. So, yeah, students coming in from wherever they might be in the world are entering post secondary study, usually directly after secondary school level study. Tell me about that relationship. What do you talk with the secondary schools about, and how does that whole process happen to get them into post secondary?
Yeah, so we're really trying to get our reach down into the secondary system. And again, I would say universities in the past 5 years in Canada have really not done a great job at that. But it really is critical for us to be present in particularly in the high school system, so that students can look at what's available at a university. What are the types of careers we want to work with the career guidance counselors in high schools in a way that we better than what we do right now. We want to increase the kind of interactivity that we have between the institution. We're trying to get heavily involved in some of the summer programs we might offer from kids in the sort of mid school up to high school, or around science, around the arts, again, cybersecurity perhaps. So how can we sort of, create a presence of a university through that K to 12 system so that students really think automatically that this is a continuation of our education? The relevance, I think, of a university to those students in that system is really important. And a lot of kids will go through high school and think, well, I don't need to go to university. I can go out and work. And so, what is it we can do in terms of sharpening people's minds, giving them skills for work, and actually giving them the opportunity to be the future leaders of business and industry, the future government leaders? And I think this is really one of the roles that a university has to claim back. It's creating the future leaders of our society, because I think we've got some big leadership voids in some areas of our governance across Canada.
One of the questions that used to be asked was, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I get asked that quite often. But what do you want to be when you grow up? When they're talking with kids that are in school, even at elementary level and into secondary, if they have an aspiration to be a marine biologist, if they want to become a lawyer, if they want to be a nurse or a doctor, how far into the how far into the secondary school level and even the elementary level can post-secondaries engage to get those kids tuned up with what they need to do to go forward?
Yeah, look, I don't think it's ever too early. And in fact, a lot of research has been shown that particularly in the STEM subjects, it's getting kids in grade 2, 3, and 4 to get excited about the opportunities in STEM if that's what they aspire to do. So I don't think we can start too early getting involved. And universities have always kind of been the receptors and sit there, let's wait for the students to come to us. And I think it's now time for us to not go and recruit students, but actually just again, be part of the education system to say that this is all connected up together. We can't sort of petition a university and silo it from a community college or a high school or a elementary school. And so we all have to work in context in the system. And I think we're really starting to see that happen. And there's a number of initiatives, we're trying to look at UVic that are really going to help that. And one of them is actually taking groups of kids from elementary school and bringing them to campus, not for a day program, but to come stay in residence for a couple of weeks and act like you're in university, right? And sit there and study for a few weeks. And we see this going on around the world, and we think it'd be an exciting opportunity for kids in this region as well.
Yeah, and one of the other attraction points too, especially kids who are interested in fitness and athletics, is the idea of post-secondary and university level sports activity. So you and I are
Yes.
guys from Ontario, and you went to
I
Queens,
went to
correct?
Queens. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
where the teams were called
The
the
Gales.
the
Yeah.
Golden Gales. That's right. So I
Yeah.
lived in London, Ontario, where it was the Western Mustangs, and I
Yeah.
lived in Waterloo, which was the Waterloo Warriors. I went to Brock University, where the teams were called the Badgers, was their name. But nonetheless, it's a really strong rallying point. Tell me about the importance of athletics in post-secondary life.
Yeah. Look, I think first of all, we've got both the students that compete for the institution, but we have virtually, 10 times that number of students actually being physically active every day at our CARSA facility. And it's been well shown through research that physical activity and mental health are really interconnected. And so, first of all, we try to make sure that our students have the opportunity to be as active as they want to be across our campuses, and that's critical for their own well-being, for their mental health, and ultimately their performance at school. And so, we're always trying to look at our programs we have on campus for all of our students. The second piece is around, as you mentioned, we all have these teams that we support, and we're quite frankly really thrilled this year. We've actually had two national champions
Yes, you have.
in our midst in both field hockey and rowing, and I just think that's a tremendous accomplishment from a, let's call it, a mid-sized university, which is what we are. We're not the 75,000 students of UBC or the 100,000 of U of T. So our elite athletes perform really well as in addition to our everyday athletes who try to compete as much as they can, and I think it's just amazing to see the number of our performance athletes who are all Canadians, which means they've actually met the honor roll in addition to performing in sports. This year, at our recent events last week, we honored three students who had a perfect 9.0 grade point average. At UVic, it's 9.0 out of 9. These are kids that continue to train for 20 hours a week on top of their regular load that they take in school. And so I think that's, again, shows that link between physical activity, performance, and wellness and performance at school.
Yeah, and of course, young people that are playing sports on a municipal level or something can always get inspiration from the Vikes to go watch them play field hockey and soccer and
That's right.
basketball and volleyball and all those things. So that's a great
Yeah,
thing.
and this is to pick up on the question you asked earlier. How do we get involved in the K to 12 system in terms of education? It's also really important in sports as well. And so we're looking at trying to work with some of the local sports institutes based in high schools and public school system and take some of our varsity athletes and have them, help out coaching and go and deliver that sort of peer mentoring that the students in the K to 12 system would appreciate. So I think there's a good synergy between also athletics as well as the education piece.
Yeah, I mean, take a look around how many people you see wearing Vikes swag too. They wear it all the
Yep.
time. And now that we're getting back in person, you can get back in person and cheer for your home team, cheer for the Vikes in person. So that's all going to be a part of bringing life back to where it was before. The United Nations is coming to Victoria through UVic. I want to talk about that next. Our guest today on Chamber Chats is the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Victoria, Dr. Kevin Hall. The United Nations. I was privileged to be at a ceremony that you invited me to, actually at Government House, to announce this too.
Yes.
But the UN is coming to town. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. And, we were the organization that facilitated it, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that this is a initiative that's for the whole region. I think it's fantastic that Victoria and the CRD can be recognized as a United Nations city. And so we are now the host to what's called a CIFAL, CIFAL. It's a French acronym, stands for the International Center for the Formation of Authorities and Leaders. There are 24 of them globally. Five of them are at universities or hosted by universities. So we're in some very, unique company. But it's great that it's a network that's based around the Sustainable Development Goals and how we can utilize those in our everyday lives, in our businesses and industry, in our governance to actually create a healthy planet and an equitable planet. And I mean, that's a really aspirational thing to look at. We've all seen, again, through this pandemic, the inequities around the globe really come to light. The fact that the environment's not doing that well has come to light, and the SDGs give us that platform to go out and train at the K to 12 level, to train municipal governments, to train industry and business around the SDGs and how you might incorporate and think about them when you're doing everything, if you're a business, from purchasing to the way you hire people to the way you deliver your products. And what we hope to do with the university is actually create, again, a series of courses using UN-based material, some of the material developed at UVic, and offer that to the local community and say, what do you need to know about SDGs and how they fit your business, for example. And so we're really very keen on rolling out these programs over the next 6 to 12 months. It also gives us this global network that we belong to, these 24 other CFALs, and that will connect not just the university, it will connect Victoria to like-minded cities around the world that host these CFALs. And I hope, through sharing this information around the importance of the SDGs, this is really going to create a significantly quicker improvement of climate, of equity, and of basic human rights.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about how the earth sciences will align with how we manage climate change, and that's a global issue that we're dealing with at this level. And UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of the
Yes,
Rights of Indigenous People, that also aligns with this, right?
absolutely aligns with it's one of the pillars of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the SDG 17 is all about collaboration. Again, how do we do this together? How do we break down these silos that tend to exist in society between whether it's between different types of industries and businesses, or whether it's between municipal governments and the citizens in the city, and how do we break down those silos and actually all roll up our sleeves and work together through collaboration to solve some of these big problems?
Our healthcare system has been under a great deal of pressure, let's put it that way, all through this entire pandemic period. Some are saying it's broken. I don't agree with that. I think that maybe it's something that has a chance to redefine itself right now and re-educate
Yeah.
itself from what we've gone through. And UVic is going to be a leader in that because of what you do in the teaching of health sciences and related matters. Tell me what's in play for that right now, and what do you think that sort of faculty and that element of education has learned from the pandemic, and what are the steps forward?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I think what is very underrated is the amount of health research that goes on at the University of Victoria. So what we're trying to do is actually consolidate that into one large entity that'll have some great visibility, both locally and across the country. So we're going to create an institute of health futures, and under that we'll have all of the centers we have operating. For example, a lot of people know about our center for aging, but there's work
You
going
looked
on
right at
in.
me when you said that, didn't you?
Well, you and I, right? And I think, but a lot of people don't know we've got a really big medical technology program, a bioengineering program. We have some tremendous work going on in the social determinants of health, in public health, and of course we have our joint medical program with UBC, and with a real focus on neuroscience. And I think because it's been disparate across our campus, it hasn't had I guess the inputs it requires to be even more successful. And so we're creating this institute. One of the first things we also want to do is we want to work again with the region. And so we're going to create a center for social medicine that will focus on homelessness, addiction, mental health issues that sort of plague our society, and do them in that holistic manner. So we hope to have a presence in the city. We're going to be partnering with Island Health, of course, and also with some of the private healthcare providers out of Vancouver to create a very unique type of facility structure that really doesn't exist across Canada, where we really start to look at these problems that are all interlinked in our society. So I think, health, although we don't have this big shiny medical school like UBC, for example, at UVic, the fact is, 95% of health is about preventative health. It's about the allied health as opposed to just medicine. And so we'll utilize the experience of the medical program we have with UBC. But I think to bring all of this health into play becomes significant because, as you mentioned, the healthcare system's not broken, but it certainly needs to start responding to some of the different stresses that are on it. And certainly the preventative medicine piece is the huge piece that will result in all of us being healthier and all of us actually being less of a burden on the health system. Yeah, I'm looking at you again, and you and I, right? So,
That's right. Yeah.
but it is a reality of an aging population, and
Yeah.
which is why we have the Institute for Healthy Aging at this point in time, because the issues associated with aging are very sort of prevalent in this area.
Yeah. And we're going to end it on that. I just want to bookend this whole thing because we started by talking about student awards of some kind, scholarships and bursaries. Amanda and I actually fund a bursary for a nursing student because my mom was a nurse
Oh,
and she relied on
fantastic.
that kind of support
Yeah.
to get through nursing school at the time. So if you have any connection of that sort of thing with your alumni, whether it's UVic or Camosun or whoever it might be, I would encourage you to do that if you have the capacity to create workforce and things that align with your past and the things that have created the successes in your life. Dr. Kevin Hall, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Victoria, always great to catch up. We will do it again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. A pleasure as always.
Right on. I'm Bruce Williams. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again for another Chamber Chat.